Microsoft is a really good company. It has a really great culture. But
Hello and welcome to a very new episode of the Design Baithak. I'm your host Jagat Singh Lamba, and today we have a very special guest with us. Why special? What comes to your mind when I say the word harvest? Crops? Rabi? Kharif? But there's a different angle to look at it when I add the term visual harvester to it. Exactly. Even I was confused when I heard this term for the first time. People like Rohit Soni have changed multiple organizations like Microsoft, Samsung, and their working conditions by making snippets through their doodles of CEO Satya Nadella, Ivanka Trump, Rahul Gandhi, just to name a few. So today we're going to know more about how his doodles have taken such an important part in changing these organizations and the way they function. Rohit, first of all, thank you for coming today here.
thank you so much. There's a wonderful introduction actually.
Yeah.
So I'd love to come again and hear it again and again. So I'm really glad.
So just to give a small background about what Rohit has done, he's done his bachelor's in design from NIFT Hyderabad. He pursued his master's in interaction design from IIT Bombay, IDC, and then he pursued a research work at the Nanyang University, Singapore. So before even going into the professional world of what you sort of went through and what you did, I want to know more about how exactly did you pursue these interests, or what were your interests in your childhood, and what did you like to do as a kid?
I think it's a really good question because while growing up, like any other kid, so I actually come from a small town in Haryana. I usually spend a lot of my childhood playing outside my home. Luckily, which we don't have the luxury now. So I spend a lot of time playing outside my home, playing these outdoor games with my cousins. I had a huge family, so we used to make new games and sort of involve everyone, play together. And during that process, I just realized that I actually learn a lot by playing. And I luckily have an elder brother who's also a designer from NIFT. So he used to come back from his from his college, bringing his assignments home, and imagine what the assignments were. They were making some shapes with clay, doing some textile work, and probably just sitting and sketching. He used to sit and sketch all of us in our family. And I used to wonder, what is this profession? Because it looks really cool. That's what I used to do. I used to play with clay, and he's actually doing the assignment using clay. And that sort of ignited my interest in design. I thought this is something that I really wanted to do, even though my mom and dad wanted me to be a doctor. So I ended up taking science in school. But my inside child was actually craving for something like this, which I realized is design as a career. And then I gave my exam. I go through NIFT, and that's where my design journey began.
So, what was that first realization that came to your mind, or when was that moment I would like to recall upon that realization that came to your mind as to, yes, this is the thing I want to do for sure? And how did you break it out to your family members? What was their reaction to it, and how did they feel about it?
Sure. So it was like a double-edged sword. How it works in Indian families. They wanted to have a career which is well established, let's say a doctor or an engineer, while I also had aspirations to be a designer or to do something in a creative field. So I actually applied for both of them. So I applied for NIFT, I applied for PMT, which is basically for medical, and I go through both of them. And I was super confused. I'm like, if I want to become a doctor, my family would be happy, and if I become a designer, probably I'll have a much more fulfilling career. So I actually did a little bit of research. I actually talked to a few people who were actually designers and working as a design industry. I got to know what kind of work they do. Is it a sustainable career for myself? Because of course I want to have a good life as well. And then I got to know that actually designing is a good career to have your creative outputs coming out in the industry, also earning a decent amount of lifestyle which you always wish. And plus point was, there are no books to be read. I have an elder brother, and I have an elder sister as well, and she is a doctor. And I've seen her studying, and I realized I can't study that much. I can study by learning, by making things by my hands. But if you give me a book and say, oh, you just learn this book, that would be a dreadful thing that you asked me to do. So those are kind of decisions help me choose design as a career. because I always believed in experiential learning, where you create something from your own experiences and probably have a career in that line. So I never saw being a doctor like that, because
Yeah.
being a doctor, you have to like study for 5 to 7 years and then keep studying about what's happening. And it's most of it like a theoretical knowledge, and then you do practice. I sort of didn't see myself going there, even though like I have a really good face for a doctor, as my parents say. I think I'm a good designer, and it's a very satisfying career for me.
So were your family members really okay about following such a passion? Because I remember when I was applying for such entrances, they had a lot of questions in their mind. So how did you explain this to your family members, and how supportive were they actually? Like,
Yeah, so amazing question. My family, like everyone else family, had the same thing. They were skeptical. Would I be able to make a good career? And they're not wrong, because we haven't seen much designers in our society. To
Exactly.
be honest,
Yeah.
we have seen like every third house in our society actually has a doctor, and every second house is actually an engineer. So you see those people and you assume that this is a pre-established path for career. What about new careers like designing, or let's say nowadays there's so much coming in terms of media and going on YouTube and having started your own channel. So I think my parents had the same doubt. I basically what I did was I when I was doing this research, I told you, right,
Yeah.
like I was talking to these people who are actually established in design. So I got my parents, like, talk to them, have a word with them, let them understand how they are doing in their fields. Thankfully, there were at least few designers who were known to common people, even though they were fashion designers like Ritu Berry, Rohit Bal, Manish Malhotra. Like, thanks to Bollywood, like at least people know their name, and that sort of helped them to see that these people are also able to sustain, are successful, and that could be a good career for their son, who was basically me. And that's how it started. Well, it was not easy,
Yeah.
to be honest. They still don't understand what I do, because my dad is a banker, my mom is a housewife, and for them to imagine that I get paid to design something or I get paid to sketch, they sort of still don't believe in that. But having seen me working throughout these years, they're like more confident that I'm doing good. And in fact, they're a little more proud than my siblings. Like I said, my sister is a dentist. She's a doctor. My other sister, she is a CA. And I think when they see me, they're like, it's not a bad career. We see you doing good. So I think now they're starting to believe that design can be a good career.
So, what sort of a transition did you notice when dreamt a boy who dreamt of being a designer to finally who got into a prestigious university such as NIFT Hyderabad? So, what kind of a transition did you notice when you actually got into the college and you saw that college life around you? So, how was that transition, and how did you motivate yourself to look forward to something every day and work towards it? So, how was that transition, sort of taking place?
Sure. I think when I was always good in, let's say, creative stuff and sketching, and that way I also stood out in my school. Throughout my school, I was always winning these drawing and painting competition, and I thought I probably do something in that field, because I was better than all those people. Let's say. In fact, I also won a state level art competition. I won a cycle when I was in 11th, and my school made me like put the cycle up in front of a huge crowd, and sort of tell that, oh, we have this student who's really good in arts and creativity. So I was like super confident when I went to NIFT.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm so good, and I'm gonna be like a cakewalk for me. When I went there, I saw there were 50 more people who were as creative as me. And that was like a shock, right? Because in my school, I was the only one who was really good. Now in NIFT, you have 50 more people who are as good as you. And then you see, wow, there's so much to learn. And everyone is unique. Everyone has their own skills. And there's so much learning that happened in those 4 years, that I actually grew from like just imagining, oh, I know everything, that there's so much to be learned. And I think when you know that you actually don't know enough, that's a good learning.
Okay.
So by fourth year, I know, oh, there's so many things I have to still be learning. And then I realized that I've become a good designer.
So, jumping on towards the end of your college life, did you came to a realization or some sort of a path that you want to follow in life, or some sort of a thing that you want to actually pursue ahead after college life? So what was that kind of I would say, realization that this is what I want to do after college?
Sure. I think it's a really good question, and it's also sort of connects with you because
Exactly.
you are in like first year of your design, and as you'll also move from first to second year, third year, you will have more and more doubts because you'll explore new subjects, and some subjects you'll fall in love with, some subjects you might not like that much, some subjects you'll hate, but still there will be multiple things that you want to do, right? When I was in NIFT, I spent a lot of time studying about what I really wanted to do, and I slowly developed like a theory for myself, and which worked so far. I call it like a triangle theory. So if you see like a shape of triangle, it's like this, right? Now there are three edges of the triangle, and they say triangle is actually the most stable form in this world. That's why it's been made into pyramids and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I sort of like imagine that if I want to like have a stable career, it's good to have sort of those three edges sorted out. So I have like 3 points to sort of connect with. One of the point of the triangle was design.
Okay.
I always wanted to study design and be it product design, visual design. That is one edge that I wanted to always learn and hold on to. The second thing that interests me and still does is technology. And I always see how technology can make our life better, how as designers we can combine tech with user experience, with product design to make it more impactful for society and for people. And the third dot, the remaining dot was about art,
Oh.
like how art changes life, how it touches human emotions, how we can make our products more emotionally intelligent, and how we can have something that actually works inside psyche of the people. Like a cup is a cup, but there are so many cups which are actually, when you go and buy that one particular cup, there is that connection happen between the cup and the user, right? And for that to happen, it either need to have art or a good design or some sort of tech to sort of establish that connection.
Exactly.
So I was fortunate enough to learn design in NIFT, and for me, the next thing to look forward was to tech, to either experiment with tech or with art. So that's how I shaped my career. And as you go forward, I'll also explain like how I sort of go to touch upon all those things.
That's a very good explanation, I would say, as he looked at so many different aspects of life, I would say. And that's how design is. It's not just looking about one particular silo based approach that we always look at. It's about that life through design that we approach that we take. And that's another philosophy that we at the Design Village also pursue. So, Rohit, when you graduated from NIFT, what was that second call that you take, and what did your parents say that now that you're graduating, are you looking for a job or do you want to study further? So, what was that conversation going on between you and your parents, and how did it resolve?
Yeah. I think like as soon as I was in my third year, I start to have these questions. Oh, are you applying for job? What is where you gonna like pursue your career after this? We have invested money. Are you gonna give us the money back and stuff like that? Even though that like all of them were like jokes, back of my mind, I was always planning that what I want to do once I have this degree of NIFT.
Okay.
And there's like such a hard-earned degree,
Yeah.
and I think people who are pursuing design actually know this, like how much sweat, time, and effort you put in getting a degree. You just value it too much. With that, you go out in this industry and you think people are gonna come and like they're gonna sort of give you a hug and say, "Come, join us." That's like a fairy tale that doesn't happen. So that realization happened that it's going to be like a tough market. Designers still sort of need to create a niche for themselves inside the industry. There are very few companies when I graduated who used to have design culture, in their companies.
Yeah.
Designers were used to be just either to help the engineers or the production team to just guide, but like to follow a design process is actually rare.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough again. I was reading a book in my third year, and it was actually a book about these entrepreneurs in India who are actually changing lives. And it was, I think it was by a girl who studied in IM, and she wrote a book about these entrepreneurs, and she had mentioned 21 entrepreneurs in that book, and one of them was actually a product designer. and he used to have a studio in Bangalore. So when I read that book, I just got super excited. I'm like, wow, this is something that I also wanted to do, probably have my studio someday. So why don't I go and shadow this designer? And what do I do then? So I found out his details. I sent a mail to this guy. I said, hey, I really love what you're doing, and can I come and join you? That's it. And I'm like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I sent it, I forgot. After a month, I got a mail back from him. He's saying, oh, sure, why don't you come and join me in my Bangalore studio? And we have a nice slush green studio, which is actually in middle of a garden. And Bangalore weather is really cool, so you like it here. Because I was in Delhi at that time. So I said, okay, I'm gonna come. And we agreed on to like our, like sort of connection, and I joined him. Next month, I was in Bangalore in his studio, sitting and just wondering what just happened. So that would happen. I don't know, like it could be anything. Like I
Yeah.
would have not picked that book. I never got to know about this person, but it just somehow happened. The connection happened, and I found myself to be in Bangalore, working for this designer who was actually an industrial designer from NID,
Yeah.
and also he has a really good visual design team. And that time, if you remember my dot,
Yeah.
I was actually really interested in design.
Oh.
So I got to know about product design, visual design, and also like the industry part of it, like how to work with clients.
Yeah.
So I was relieved that I was able to sort of be in that atmosphere at that time.
So for how long were you there in Bangalore, and did you ever feel that you should take a break and sort of pursue your probably a master's program or study more or do a different thing that what you're doing right now?
So when I was in Bangalore, I would have stayed all my life, but like the weather was amazing. But I also realized that as a designer, and in fact, when you start as a young designer, you actually do a lot of work as it is told to you. So a lot of things were getting told to me, and I was like working on them. But I had this urge in me to sort of do something based on my instinct, and I had this 4 years of degree in NIFT, and I want to use that potential and the skills I've learned to do something where I also putting my mind into it. At this point of time, I also was doing a little bit of research. I started to get inclined towards tech. I heard about this company called Microsoft Research in Bangalore, and they were working on something really phenomenal. I thought it'd be like a really nice idea to also learn research, because as a designer, if I know my research, I know why I'm doing something. Why the shape of the cup is round, and why it has a handle where my fingers can go in, because I've done research and I know that this is the size of the hand, this is the material it is supposed to be. So you can answer those questions in your mind.
Yeah.
Right? Like as a designers, we're not robots. We design robots.
Yeah.
Right? So to know those whys, I thought it'd be a good idea to do masters. In fact, I worked in Bangalore for less than 1 year, and I applied for masters, and then I ended up in IDC IIT Bombay. So IDC has a really nice course in interaction design, which is about experience design, and that's where I started learning research.
Okay.
And that's where I touched my second triangle of tech.
Okay. How is the life at IIT? Because everyone has a very different perception of looking at IIT. So how did you think that IIT is what you actually wanted, and did you actually pursue what you actually wanted it, or was it different for something else? And how was the entire experience of working and taking a course like interaction design at IIT Bombay?
Sure. When I was joining IIT, in fact, before joining, before my result was coming out, I was super nervous because we have notions that this is a college for designers, this is a college for engineers, this is a college for architects. That's how it has been designed, right? And IIT is hands down is for nerdies. It's for engineers. And I never saw myself as an engineer because I learned design. So I thought, why am I going to an engineering college? I should go to a design college. But when I again did my research, I actually looked up some alumni who passed out from my course. I ring them up.
Okay.
We have a website where you have an alumni details. I ring them up. I called at least 10 people and I said, hey, I'm going to join this course. How do you think this course is? And I heard positive things about them. I told them, see, I'm a designer and I'm coming to a college where they actually take multidisciplinary people. So is it going to be difficult? And I don't know coding. I don't know tech, and they're like, it's perfectly fine. And I'm like, okay. And then I went and joined. And in fact, my class was amazing because we had five designers who had background in design. There were five people who were from tech, who were basically engineers. We have two people who were like fine artists.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was like a really good combination, and the kind of discussions we used to have in design was actually really, really fulfilling, because you have engineers, you have designers, you have artists, and they're working on something. So it used to be super, super crazy.
That's lovely. So did that another world of tech that came into your life, did it actually help you in some great way? Because I know you changed your field a little bit. You wanted to go to the tech part of it and learn more about it. So what was the next step and how did you go about it?
So during my IIT days, like for 1 year, they just teach you research. We do a lot of projects about research, and then research, even though it sounds like a small word, because people also do research on Google. It's crazy. The size of research that people do as designers is humongous. There's secondary research, primary research, this research, that research. You go study people. In fact, like there are people who study people who study cultures for like years.
Yeah.
It's called ethnographic studies.
Yeah.
And it goes in for at least 10 years, 12 years
Oh.
to study, and to know that culture. So that is also a research. That's like an extreme end of research. And there are like people who are doing PhDs who actually do research for 4 years before they create something new.
Yeah.
Right. So research is a huge field in itself. So for 1 year we were learning research. And no designing, just research. So I had tough time, but I actually learned research, which I always wanted to do, to understand why, why we are doing something, why this is like this,
Yeah.
that curiosity that you have. So it's always good to probably have a good research in your mind. So that happened. And then for the next 1 year, we're supposed to design. So you have learned research. Now for next year, you do your like solution part,
Yeah.
right? And IIT has a very interesting curriculum that for 1 year you have classes, and for next year you don't have classes.
Okay.
So it's entire 1 year of no classes. As soon as you do your like first, you complete your first year, you go to your third semester, you start a project, and you propose your project. You tell what you're gonna deliver. You set your own deadlines.
Okay.
And so let's say if we're in the same class, my deadline for the project might be different from your deadline.
Oh.
Because your project is different from mine, right?
Yeah.
So your research can be different from mine. Like you can do your research in a week, I can take a month.
Okay.
Right? So our deliverable and design deadlines will be different.
Okay.
So we give our own deadlines, and then we go and present. We also tell what we're going to do in our solution, which is the hardest part, because once you tell it, you have to prove it. And that's basically, I found IIT as a very, let's say it takes a lot of juice out of you,
Yeah.
because it makes you really uncomfortable. I cannot design something out of my imagination. It has to be backed by research. It has to be backed by human behaviors. It has to be backed by the next upcoming tech. And of course, it has to be unique. Like I can't reinvent the wheel and then say I'm a designer.
Oh.
Right? So how will the innovation will happen? So to be innovative, you have to like keep defining new things, like unique things, which you need to put in this world. So that happened. And luckily, I was working on a project where I was working on these migrants community, which are actually moving. I know like in 2020, we had this huge migrant crisis that people has to actually migrate from their workplace to their hometowns. It's actually not a new scenario. It's actually happening for last 100 years.
Okay.
People who belong to the, let's say, economic class, which is below towards the end of it, they actually have to migrate. And it's happening from some states in India to some other states which are richer.
Okay.
So I was actually studying those people that I was in Mumbai at that time, IIT Mumbai, and I was studying all the cooks we had in IIT, how they have migrated from their hometown and what difficulties they are facing. Can I design something for them? And luckily, there was a research project happening in Nanyang University in Singapore on how the Indian migrants are doing in Singapore. So Singapore has 4 major languages. One of them is actually Tamil.
Okay.
It's one of their official language.
Yeah.
Because there's huge population of Tamilians in Singapore, and most of them are construction workers and migrants who live there. So I got my chance to like probably study them there. So I got a research project there in Singapore. then I saw myself being in Singapore and doing my research project in NTU.
Okay.
So yeah.
So
that's
now
how
that
it
we
connected.
reached a second point of that triangle, how did that curiosity even build more? And what was that next step that thought that, oh, this is my eureka moment, or this is where I've reached now? And what was that next step that you take so that you could take this path that you took from Mumbai to Singapore? And now, what did you think that opportunities were there for you out there in Singapore, or probably back here in India? And how could you use that knowledge over here in India itself?
Yeah. I think Singapore is sort of like a culture shock again. Like, I've always had this culture shock in my life and I love them because it happened with NIFT, it happened with IIT, it happened with the NTU Singapore. Wow, Singapore's culture is again, it's a multicultural. It's basically like a global pot of cultures. There are people from all around the world.
Okay.
And I was luckily able to work with people from different backgrounds. I used to sit in a lab, cosmic lab, where we had people who were from Sri Lanka, people from US, and there were faculties also who I used to present to them and show my findings, and used to get their perspective on that.
Okay.
And that was actually very eye-opening because the way different people look at design,
Yeah.
or let's say even just a single design, if you like just rotate it with different people, it is amazing, astonishing amount of information you get from them is super
Yeah.
crazy. In fact, our juries used to happen in front of international faculties because again, migration is a global issue. So why not have people from different part of the world
Yeah.
to actually judge where you are and what you have done in your design project. So I was lucky enough to basically present in front of them. In fact, my project report also just changed. If you can like have a look before what I was doing in India and when I went to Singapore, it is like a super different take on the exposure that I got there.
Exactly.
And I was lucky enough to basically interact with a lot of migrants there as well. And then I was lucky enough to complete it in the time frame. It was a very strict time of four months. I completed my research. I came back to IIT, presented it, and hopefully got grades. Like, there's a saying in IIT. They say, if you think it's hard to get in IIT, try getting out. Because if your project is not good enough,
Yeah.
they give you extensions.
Yeah.
And it's like a grilling time because imagine like we are 20 people in our class, 19 of them have actually done and they're wrapping up their luggage.
Yeah.
You are still working on your project. And if it's not good enough, they'll give you extension again and again and again. And it gets really deadly for people. I've seen people crying because if the project is not good enough, you can't go out of IIT.
Okay.
You have to stay in IIT. You have to complete your project. And also a good thing about interaction design, which I saw was a difference from NIFT,
Okay.
is that you get time to improve your design. Okay. So in NIFT, let's say if I design this cup and I present in the jury, they will give their feedback. They're like, oh, these are the good things about your design.
Yeah.
These are bad things about your design. Now go. Like you're done with the semester.
Yeah.
Next semester mein try karna. IIT mein, if I present this cup and say this is a design for you, they give the feedback. Now they're like, okay, when are you showing us the next version? And you're like, okay, I thought this was a final jury. They're like, no, there's 1.2 version of this now. And then you're working on 1.2 version and 1.3 until they feel that it's good enough. So you keep improving your design. And sometimes they also ask you to go back to your users and check if your design has met the requirement that you have set for yourself.
Yeah.
Do you remember I talked about that we tell what you're going to solve?
Yeah.
In IIT? It's the same thing. Let's say if I'm going to design a cup for someone who's disabled or specially challenged, I'm going to go and present my cup to this person and see how he's able to use it.
Okay.
Right? And if he's not able to use it, I'm going to go and redesign it.
Oh.
And again until unless I meet that requirement. Because as a designer, it's our job to solve the problems. If the problem is not solved, then you have been just playing around, right? And if you play around, you become an artist because that you get yourself to express. So I think I like this thin line between both the professions, and also it sort of makes it feel a little better about being a designer because you're contributing to the world by solving one problem at a time.
So Rohit, how was this experience of going through 3 different pedagogical structures, and what were your experiences that you have sort of come across after going through such a different drastic change in your educational career?
So I see my life like as 3 buckets in 3 colleges. NIFT is actually about convergence. It just gives you a lot of freedom to like experiment with a lot of things. In fact, the whole curriculum was designed in a way that you learn probably a lot of things in your 4 years career. You know, my master's in IIT Bombay was like convergence. It actually tells you to focus and go deep into one thing that you want to pursue. Let's say it could be research, it could be the design process, it could be understanding the interaction design patterns, like that. So I think for my masters, like just everything is converging into one thing which I want to like really learn.
Yeah.
And then my NTU experience is more about the exposure with different cultures and how design is perceived, let's say, by different people from different race, different geographies, and how we can cater to that.
Okay.
So the universal aspect of design sort of came in that NTU time. So that's how I can see it.
How was the life after IIT now? Like, were there opportunities coming all across your way, and how was the life after it?
Yeah, I think thanks to IIT, I think it was established by Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru a long time back. It has gained that reputation of producing good students. So what happens now? There's this hiring process in IIT, which is super crazy. It happens for a week, and there's so many students that the hiring actually happens 24/7.
Okay.
No one sleeps. And I remember giving my interview for Samsung Design then at that time, and I gave my interview at 8 p.m. in the night, and then I went back to my hostel and I slept. At 2 a.m. in the night, I got a knock on my door saying, "Hey, you have been shortlisted. Can you get ready and go for the next round?" So I got ready at 2 a.m. in the night, and by 4 a.m. I had my HR round, and by morning 6, I think it was sort of like there was a discussion of how you want to join and stuff like that.
Wow.
So it is super crazy. There is no time, and it's actually like all the company actually come and they like they actually sit in their like they basically come and like settle in their tents.
Yeah.
They're like, we're gonna take these people and go back, and we're not taking no for an answer because what happens like you get actually counter offers, right? So if I sit for 5 companies and I go through 3, all 3 of them will compete to basically offer you a better thing. And that's a really good thing because it happens at the same time. So I can tell them, hey, I already have offered with company A, and then company B will give you a little better option, and then you can say this to company C, and that way it's a really good opportunity for students.
Okay.
That is something IIT has established very well, and students actually benefit from them.
Okay.
So that happened, and I just didn't join Microsoft, Samsung at the time because I wanted to go to Microsoft.
Okay.
I just always had this thing in my mind that I go and work. Remember, like when I was doing my research about Microsoft research, from there I just thought this is a time and moment for me to go and join this company. But sadly, Microsoft didn't turn up that year for hiring.
Oh.
So I said no. I said I gonna join somewhere else and see how it goes. Sometimes it works like that. You think for something, but it doesn't happen, and then you always have a plan B or C. Sometimes you think that it's actually a good thing that happened that time. So I joined a company in Mumbai on traveling. It was a travel-based company, and I did my project in migrants. Related to migrants in IIT. So it just gave me an opportunity to apply that learning into real life. All the research I've done, all the reports I've written, I could apply that in this company, and a really fulfilling time of my life because I got to see my theory into practicality. Luckily, I got noticed by Microsoft through my LinkedIn, and I got an offer to just come and visit them for an interview. And next year, I saw myself sitting in Microsoft.
Wow. So did your job profile in Microsoft actually existed, or did you create one for yourself? And how was your life as a designer? Because entering into such a structured organization like Microsoft, how did you change the entire organizational setup of Microsoft?
Yes, like Microsoft is huge. Like imagine it like a huge ship, and you are like probably one body, one part of the machine.
Yeah.
And that's how it's like $1 trillion company, and that's how it moves, with 1 trillion different parts. But when I joined Microsoft, I joined as a consultant, and consultant is someone who basically has an open role.
Okay.
The job of a UX consultant is to consult other clients, which are Microsoft's clients in their projects,
Right.
and that could be anything. I came from a background of being a visual designer, a product designer, and also UX design. So I used to like help the companies in my own way. In
Right.
fact, if you look at my projects in during Microsoft, all of them are super visual because I've always been a very visual guy. I always visualize things. All my project reports are also very visual. In fact, the research I used to do in IIT, I used to like publish a visual paper out of that.
Yeah.
It's just like my findings just put in a very infographical visual way.
Yeah.
So that's how I used to like pursue my projects in Microsoft. And something very interesting happened. I happened to be in US for a project in Microsoft headquarters,
Okay.
and we are listening to this this designs problem that is happening, and we are brainstorming as designers. And I'm like usually the one who's sitting with my sketchbook and just doodling, just listening and doodling to what is getting talked about, and what is my take on that. And I think someone from my team in US, they saw me and they're like, "Hey, what you doing?" And I told them I'm just like making some visual notes.
Okay.
And then they're like, "Can you show us?" And I showed it to them, and they really liked it. They're like, "It's actually really good. In the next meeting, can you do it for us on a big paper instead of your sketchbook?" And I'm like, "Of course." And next time I was doing it on one big sheet of paper. So whatever was getting discussed, I was able to make a visual representation of that. And they took that to the client, and client really liked it because they're like, "Oh, this is actually a live information that been captured,
Okay.
and we can actually use it in our reports, and it's gonna be really valuable for us." And that point I realized that if you can capture the discussions, the ideas which are flowing around you, and somehow like visual is a really good medium.
Yeah.
Because as humans, 94% of our memory is actually visual.
Exactly.
What you see is dreams, which are visual. You don't hear sound because that's how our brain
Right.
sees the world. That's how it remembers it. So I realized the power of that at that time. I came back to India and I started applying that in my work.
Okay.
Luckily, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, was visiting Hyderabad,
Okay.
and he was talking about his book called Hit Refresh. It's a book on organization structure and about his life at Microsoft and how it changed the culture. And I got a call from my director in Microsoft, and he said, when Satya is speaking in the town hall with everyone,
Okay.
do you want to capture what he's saying? And you can do it in live in front of everyone, and everyone can actually say it. And later, when they come back, they'll also remember what he spoke about.
Okay.
And I'm like, wow, that sounds interesting. I love to do that. And next, like fast forward 1 month, Satya was in Microsoft Hyderabad headquarters. He was talking to all the employees. In the background, I was on a big wall. I think it was like a 8 feet by 6 wall, 8 feet by 6 feet wall. I was actually like sketchnoting or doodling what he was saying.
Oh.
I had 20 minutes for his speech, and I was able to like fill that whole 6 feet by 8 feet thing in that time.
That's amazing.
And I was like, wow, did I just do it? Luckily, like there were a lot of cameras and media people at that time because Satya was in India.
Yeah.
So they were like sort of capturing him, and they saw it and they projected on the TV.
Okay.
So it was shown on a lot of media channels, and it got the attention of people, to be honest. And then from that point in time, like I got so many inquiries about it. People were really interested in this because I think they saw something like this
Yeah.
for the first time.
Yeah.
And from then I started doing it officially as a visual harvesting.
Wow.
So that's where the word visual harvesting comes, because
Wow.
it's visually harvesting the information that you have around you.
That's amazing, I would say. Like taking a talent such as doodling to an organization level and talking about it, showing so many people. So I want to ask one thing. How did the entire organizational structure of Microsoft change in terms of the interaction part of it? Like, did your doodles change the interaction of people, how they responded to such discussions, and how they also took part in these discussions? So how did that sort of organization change? Like, how did people's mindset change? How did they become more interested in such conversations?
Yeah, I think one thing that happened for sure was we have in Microsoft annual meetups.
Okay.
Like this basically for people from all around the globe to come in Microsoft headquarters and learn from each other. And I got invited there to do a workshop on the same thing,
Okay.
to tell people how they can do it, how they can incorporate something like this, and how I can also make it a little easier for everyone to learn. And I was included in one of the teams of Microsoft that time, and I was the only one from India, and we were like 6 people
Okay.
from the organization, and together we built a course. And that course is live, and people actually get training from that course virtually now online, and that's how it got manifested into like one of the courses which Microsoft sort of have in their training right now.
Yeah.
So I really saw that as a manifestation of what I wanted to do, and also now other people are learning and doing it on their own. So that was a very fulfilling moment.
Okay.
Like that.
So for how long were you there in Microsoft? And
I was there for 3.5 years.
okay.
Yeah, and yeah.
So did you think of planning to do something else after Microsoft, or were you very happy with the job, or what was it like?
Microsoft is a really good company. It has a really great culture, but I always had this thing in my mind that I want to do something on my own.
Okay.
I want to see how a creative person can actually drive his decisions and also learn a bit about business.
Okay.
Probably become an entrepreneur.
Okay.
You know, like I said, like you are basically a big, like a small spoke in a really big, system. You want to basically like zoom in a bit and see what is your potential and worth is. And for me, when I was in Microsoft, I already had this thing in my mind. So it was more of a question of when than how. So I like waited, and when I thought it was the right time, I started my own studio and I quit Microsoft. It was also a very interesting like transition that happened in my life, because now I'm going to the third part of the triangle, which is being able to express what I always believed in, and doing something like which I used to do as a kid,
Right.
and now like creating, let's say, like an entrepreneurship out of that. So coming out of Microsoft was not easy. Like if you tell your parents that you're quitting a job, you will get to know what they think about it. They're like, no, छोड़ना नहीं है, वहीं रहना है. 10 साल और रहो वहाँ पहुँच जाओगे, 20 साल और रहो यहाँ आ जाओगे. But I was always very, very driven by this fact that I can sort of create something by my own self.
Right.
So what I did, I didn't inform my parents that I'm quitting.
Okay.
So I quit, and for next 3 months, I was just talking to my parents normally that, oh yeah, I'm going to office, I'm like having lunch and stuff like that, while I was like sitting in my home studio and working on my,
Okay.
My startup at that time. So, and I totally get it, because your parents don't want you to suffer, right? They don't want you to struggle. They want you to have a comfortable life, and I understood that. So I didn't want to bother them saying, oh, I'm jumping off the ship, because for them, they don't know what I was jumping into.
Yeah.
So after 3 months, when I was able to like sustain myself a bit, and also like able to probably have the same lifestyle which I always wanted, and continue my same life as Microsoft, I informed them that, hey, listen, I've quit Microsoft, but don't worry, I'm doing fine, and I'm able to like do the same things which I was able to do with Microsoft. And then they understood. They're like, okay, if you are taking care of yourself, we are okay. And that's how the entrepreneurship journey started.
I would say that's a very huge and bold step from stepping down as a Microsoft employee to doing something of your own. I would like to know, what were the did that curiosity level still sustain, and what were the upsides and downsides of leaving that corporate industry and starting something of your own? So were you equally curious at that time after leaving Microsoft?
One thing, of course, I miss is the foreign trips. But it was difficult, to be honest. There are so many things that you realize that you don't have to like think about when you are in a job. Suddenly like you start to see them, you're like, oh अच्छा ये भी है, उसके भी बारे में सोचना पड़ता है, taxes भी हैं, health insurance भी है, ये भी है, which were actually taken care before. But that's also a really good thing, because you understand your responsibilities. When I was in Microsoft, I was only responsible for my assignments.
Right.
That this is my project, I'm going to deliver it in this time, this is my team, I'm going to take care of it. You out of the Microsoft, you are actually taking care of your business, yourself, also of your employees which you are hired, and the business development, how it's growing, human resource, um, health insurance, banking, like everything that you actually can think about, it becomes your responsibility.
Okay.
So suddenly you like start to shift from your thinking,
Yeah.
because when we're in job, we think from like, let's say, like monthly.
Yeah.
Like, okay, every 30th I'm gonna get my salary, I'm gonna pay my rent, do my things.
Yeah.
Business is a little different, or let's say entrepreneurship is a little different. It's very uncertain.
Yeah.
Like right now you're here,
Yeah.
tomorrow you can be there, and then you can be here again, right? So to hold your nerves when you are in this segment is what you learn. You learn to take risk. You learn to basically overcome these challenges. Like 2020 was a huge challenge for us, but we learned how to overcome it, and actually like learn something which I would have never learned if I would have been part of a company.
Right.
So you start to make these decisions which gonna impact you, gonna impact your business, gonna impact the people around you, and maybe if your company is big enough, it's gonna impact the world as well.
Right.
So taking those decisions, I think that's something you learn becoming an entrepreneur, and driving your own car instead of sitting in a car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sitting in a car is more fun, but then when you drive, you feel the thrill of it.
Exactly.
You have your leg on the race and the brake, and you can control the car. So that's the experience that you get, and that's what I explain to people. Like, you won't know how driving is like if you never drove. It will look really risky, but once you start driving, you will love it. And that is the same thing with being an entrepreneur as a designer.
So when you were back there in Microsoft, you usually worked with clients who were a part of Microsoft and partnered with Microsoft. But when you were starting off your own, what sort of an approach did you use, and how did you even approach clients in the first place? And how did you make that impact that, yes, I'm someone who can, take that same talent that you used in Microsoft to a business level? So how was that approach taken into account?
So for me, I follow one rule which is called under promising and over delivering. So I under promise. I say that I probably won't be able to deliver only this, but I actually deliver here.
Okay.
And that way you start building the trust, and you start getting recommendation. So you work with one client, they recommend you to the next client, or they might come call you back for their project.
Okay.
And then the cycle starts.
Okay.
So that's where I started. I wanted to like do the best work that I can do for my clients, for my startup, and then I started getting recommendations, and then the recommendations sort of become a cycle. In fact, we didn't even like market ourselves. Everything that we have been able to do so far is organic. It's word of mouth. So I do it for you, and then you tell someone else, and then they tell someone else, and then basically the circle comes. So that's how it's been working, and that has worked for me so far.
So I recently chanced upon this news where Jeff Bezos stepped down as the CEO of Amazon, and he took upon more learning. He wanted to learn something new. So are your plans similar to doing something of your own now and learning other than design? Are your interests somewhere else? And how do you look at it? And what sort of an approach would you use to choose something else other than design and art?
Yeah. So I think, like, remember the triangle?
Yeah.
I think we are like sort of completing the triangle right now. I am actually wondering, like, should I start my next triangle now? So I'm actually like building my next triangle, working on that.
Okay.
Let's say like it was a smaller triangle that was a little bigger. There are three things again, and I'm gonna pursue them, which are actually an overlap of my passions, and the things that interest me, and also probably can create a little bit of impact on everyone's life, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
That's great. So Rohit, I remember when I was preparing for my entrances, I had this a very silo-based approach and looking at a very particular silo of design, and seeing something, taking that as a career option, and even that thought came into mind. But why product design? I mean, product design is a tool to become a designer, but why product design? What is it that you want to do after becoming product design? And that general purpose of being a designer is what I realized after coming into first year. So what are your thoughts on not choosing design as a very silo-based career option?
I think designers by nature are experimental, and what is experiment? You do a lot of things, and these are the good things, these are the bad things, and that's how you progress, right? So that's what I say to all the designers and people, probably aspiring designers as well, that you do a lot of things, and then you see what you like, and then based on that, you do your research that, oh, these are the really, let's say, good careers that I can probably pursue. This is good to have career, and this is not for me, like not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Okay, like I can't be a fashion designer, but
Yeah.
there's someone else, they can be, right? But doesn't mean that I can't go and like experiment with it. In fact,
Exactly.
in NIFT, I got a chance to work on clothes, and I loved it. But I loved it till that moment. I'm like, no, I want to focus on product design because that's where I can excel. And that phase, I think, as a designer, you should do definitely, like definitely try a lot of things. And by trying only, you will know that this is for me, this is not for me. And then if you get a chance, make your triangle, keep filling in, keep like repeating it. Oh, okay, this fits in my this edge, this fits in my this edge, and then probably you'll have more stable answer to your question as well. Like that.
Definitely, you use your preconceived knowledge of some other knowledge that you've gained in some other silo, and you use it somewhere else.
Exactly. In fact, in industry, you can't work in
Exactly.
silo, right? Like we work in multidisciplinary teams. There are people who are from arts background, design background, textile background, fashion background. It's always good to have a little bit of knowledge of everything because then you know where they're coming from, where you are coming from, and that makes a good team.
Well, that was a really interesting conversation, I would say. So, some final thoughts on these aspirations, or what students should look for or aspire for, why before even getting into a college, or let's say after graduating from college, what actually should they expect is what I would like to know about from you.
Sure. I think one skill or one quality that I think that stands or everyone apart from rest of the people is being unique. Like is easier said than practice, but being unique is the core quality I think a designer can have. As a designer, it's your job to innovate, to create something new, to change the world, and you won't do it if you're not unique, if you're not innovating. And that really comes from understanding who you are, right?
Yeah.
Because my design will be an extension of Rohit Soni,
Definitely.
while yours will be yours, right? So if I don't understand myself, my design will be just a replica of someone else, right? So understand yourself, understand who you are, what you like, what kind of person you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, and then when you design, make sure that it's actually unique. You're not just creating one more trash in this world because
Right.
there's too many products already.
Right, right.
So like try to be unique and try to be as authentic as possible is something I think you're gonna create that is more useful for this world. So that's what I can actually advise. And thanks to like a lot of things which are happening. In fact, now I see people and teens and young people, they are much more aware than we were, thanks to all the exposure they are getting from different mediums. It's really good to it's really good to like see them already on that path.
Thank you so much, Rohit, for joining us. I'll be dropping a link of Rohit's website in the description below, and you can check out his work. And also, you can comment in the comment section of what you think about his work and what you want to ask Rohit about more about his field, or what talent he pursued in life became a complete profession career package that he's doing right now. So if you do want to be a part of these conversations, please subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.